The Wolves squeeze past the Mavericks 105-100, and they avoid being swept. So the humiliation did not happen there. Anthony Edwards, 29 points, 10 rebounds. Nice of him to show up, and I guess he didn't get tired in this game for Minnesota. He had the 10 rebounds, the 9 assists. So the Wolves staying alive. Game 5 will be on Thursday night. And whether you like it or not, that game will be played Thursday night back in the Twin Cities. Now, what I want to talk to you about, in the lead-up to this game, a reporter from the Mavericks television channel in Dallas sent out a video which for some reason she deleted. We're not sure why. What's the point of deleting it when it went everywhere? But in the video clip that went around, Kyrie Irving said that the Wolves heading into Game 4, you see this? He said the Wolves heading into Game 4, for them, this was their Super Bowl. However, for Dallas, it was just a normal game. La 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 la. So that was the money quote. So, of course, what do you think happened? That's right. Immediately after that quote started bouncing around the echo chamber. Oh, my God! I can't believe Kyrie said it. Bulletin board, bulletin board, bulletin board, ding, 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 bulletin board. Oh, my God. So let's discuss. Did Kyrie Irving's words come back to sting the Mavericks? Was the outcome of Game 4 a result of Kyrie Irving's big mouth? So I've got Miss Cleo, Silly Putty, and the multiverse. And we will combine all of these things together, and we are going to make some soggy Texas toast is what we're going to make, because that's what the Dallas basketball team threw out there. Now, to answer the question, did Kyrie Irving's words come back to haunt the Mavericks? So as much as I love to bash Kyrie, it's a lot of fun. And I really do enjoy sports hate. And I took some schadenfreude at the end of this game. I did. I had a little schadenfreude moment. I did. I enjoyed it. That being said, if you think that the reason Minnesota decided to engage at the end of this game, and Karl Anthony Towns actually made shots when he normally is a brick house at the end of the game, if you think that was because Kyrie Irving was caught on candid camera at a shoot-around and made some comments, you probably should stand up, because I think you are sitting on the buffoon button, you dingleberry. The Timberwolves, last I checked, they can't play in the Super Bowl. Of course, neither can the Vikings anytime recently. But the bigger issue here, Kyrie Irving, his words about the way that Dallas was going to approach this game, that was a prophecy. I haven't seen a prophecy that good since back when I was younger and I used to watch the Miss Cleo infomercials, the modern-day psychic hotline, if you will. And Kyrie Irving played like it was a November game on a random Tuesday night against the Rockets. That's the way he played. At least the results were that way. He took 18 shots to get 16 points, only made 6 shots, missed 12 of the 18 shots that he took. And Luka, but he had the big stat line. He had the triple-double. Not impressive. I wasn't impressed. The greatest backcourt in NBA history. Woo! According to prisoners of the moment, in the fourth quarter, they shot 33.3%. Kyrie Irving and Luka Doncic, 33.3%. Half the sign of the devil in the fourth quarter, shooting from the floor. All right, now, turning the page here, there's another grand conspiracy. Now, this is a ready-made conspiracy. Just add water. Ready-made conspiracy. So do you believe the internet sleuths, I'll say that word, sleuths, the internet sleuths, do you believe them when they say that Scott Foster rigged this game, that phone calls were made, and the game was rigged for Minnesota to win? Now, I didn't see it that way. I know that stuff bounces around the internet. We got people like Poppy in San Diego that call up, and they're convinced they know exactly how this is all going to go. And while there have been some improprieties, shall we say, in Scott Foster games, and I do believe that games have been rigged. We know they have been rigged. There's proof of it. The NBA, back in the old days with a commissioner named David Stern, they swept it under the rug. They said, wow, we just had a rogue referee. We don't believe that to be true. We think there were multiple referees that were involved in some funny business. Tim Donaghy's the one that was the fall guy. But Scott Foster was buddy-buddy with Tim Donaghy. But the Scott Foster story, even though I do think funny business happens, I didn't see anything. Maybe I missed it. But I didn't see anything that rose to the level of, okay, well, this is another one of these Scott Foster games. It has become the man that shot Liberty Valance. When you talk about Scott Foster, when the legend becomes the fact, you broadcast the legend. Scott Foster, at this point, is silly putty. He's silly putty, right? He's malleable. Just depends on the outcome of the game, and you can twist him into that outcome. It's like we often talk about things like momentum. The Mavericks had all the momentum. Why would they lose this game? They'd won 3 games in a row. They hit every big shot down the stretch. Explain to me why Dallas would give back momentum. I don't understand it. Do you understand it? I don't understand it. Here's another example, though, of the Scott Foster thing. Because the outcome, whatever fits the narrative, whatever you're trying to sell, you go with. Now, I will admit, again, I'm going to go back to Scott Foster at some point. There'll be a game that he totally botches, and at that point we can revisit this. But this was not one of those games, right? And we call it like we see it, and I wish there was some impropriety that I could bring up and say, well, that was it. I mean, Karl-Anthony Towns fouled out in the final seconds of the game. Now, that being said, I don't doubt that they did a happy dance at NBA headquarters in Midtown Manhattan at the outcome, because it would have been, for television purposes, apocalyptic had both conference finals ended up in a sweep and you're sitting there twiddling your thumbs waiting for the NBA finals to begin, which don't start until next Thursday. But had Minnesota not won, let's say the Mavericks had won, then Scott Foster would have been called the closer. He's the closer. But since Minnesota ended up winning, he's the extender. So he's either the closer or the extender, just whatever fits the story you're trying to tell. And I would love to have said there was something there. I didn't see anything. If you saw something, you can call up and chew my ear off. All right, now last word here. Is there a path for the Wolves to come back? I know Lorena is dying to know. Big sports fan. Is there a path for the Timber Puffs to come back in the Western Conference Finals and get to the NBA Finals, head east to Boston? Is there a path? So I'm going to nod my head yes on this. I'm Benny Brightside on this one. Believe it or not, I am someone that my mind wanders. I'm up all night. I never can sleep at night. I'm always up doing this show. And I do buy into the multiverse theory of the world, that there's a bunch of different dimensions. And in a parallel dimension, the Mavericks get a round-trip flight on the Vomit Comet, and they totally botch this thing, just like they botched the fourth quarter of this past game here, this game Tuesday night. And there is a scenario. Now, needless to say, it's the parallel dimension in the multiverse. It's a rocky road, not Rocky Road ice cream. That's delicious. It's a rocky road. However, it really just is one more game. Game 5 is the Waterloo moment. Tell me I'm wrong. That to me, that's the moment where everything moves upside down. So my advice to my friends in Minnesota, and we have many great listeners in Minnesota, Luka's going to go out and eat a bunch of Juicy Lucy's. The guy's a pig. He eats a lot of food. Good for him. So Luka's going to go out and load up on some burgers. So he eats so many burgers, he ends up hibernating. And he sleepwalks through Game 5. Dallas loses that game. All of a sudden, that ride on the Vomit Comet takes them into the pressure cooker in Game 6, because they then have to win. Now, the next game's in Minnesota on Thursday, but then after that, they go back to Texas. If you lose Game 6 at home, OMG, you're cooked, right? Because then all of a sudden you got a Game 7. So the pressure is on Luka and Kyrie at Game 6. Now, right now, there's still no pressure on Minnesota. You play a pressure game, pressure. Because the Wolves, I read the internet. I heard the conversation. The Wolves, they already had their funeral. The eulogy has been written for the 2024 Timberwolves after they lost the first 3 games. No one's ever come back. I get it. But if you lose game 5, you're Dallas, and then you got to win game 6, otherwise you end up in a game 7. You put yourself in a winner-take-all game 7 where one twisted ankle or Luka Doncic not getting his nap in or Kyrie Irving making some lunatic comment like he's known to do about the world being flat or whatever, and all of a sudden, instead of going to Boston, the Mavericks will go to Cancun. And there's a thing involved with this called the gambler's fallacy. And the way the gambler's fallacy works is this erroneous thinking that a certain event is more or less likely to happen given a previous set of events. Like, no one has ever come back from this deficit in the history of the NBA playoffs. We've only seen a few teams in hockey and the famous Red Sox against the Yankees in the ALCS that did it in baseball. But there is that path there because they have home court.